Welcome to the S.J. Childs Show, where a little bit of knowledge can turn fear into understanding. Enjoy the show. Hi, and welcome to the S.J. Childs Show. I'm so excited today because Miss Nancy here was my very first episode, and here she is back again. And by the time this airs, I think we'll make you episode 200. We're that close. We're that close. So thank you so much for staying in touch. I mean, it's so much I took from our first interview, and in fact, I just re-listened to it recently because I was getting excited to talk to you again, and I just wanted to pull up, those points and things, and so much that I learned from you that I tried to give information and teach others along the way. So thank you so much for that.
That makes me feel really great.
Wow, I would just honor you so much in that way. And the fact that we have such a deep compassion and hope for children and for our future generations of our society and what it's going to look like and how can we make it the best place we can do that. And so today we've brought Nancy back because she has two new books that were republished.
Yeah, I rewrote them because I got some really dynamite new insight.
I love that.
So here they are. It's Be Positively Powerful. And the first one is A Teen's Guide to Resilience and Empowerment. And I realized I needed something for slightly younger. This is obviously for teens. This one is Be Positively Powerful, Resilient When Things Get Tough.
Like that.
So this is more for intermediate grades, although I had, it's got kind of fun cartoons. I redid the cartoons.
I love that.
And I had a kindergarten teacher friend of mine review it, and she said, I love to teach all of these concepts. So even though younger children would not be able to read it, I'm actually hoping to get these into schools because we have so many young people who are so challenged at this point in time, and so that's my focus, is trying to support them.
And today we're going to talk about bullying. We're going to talk about perspectives as far as what can you do as a parent, what can you do as an educator, what kind of steps can you take to teach your child, and what about if you have a special needs child that is up against something and they don't understand how to advocate for themselves. So today we're going to really step into some wonderful conversations. So tell everybody a little bit about yourself, just for those who hadn't gone back and listened to that first episode.
Okay. Probably I should say you learn from your experiences. I went through junior high school as Weirdo Willard. And 1 year I missed 31 days of school because I just couldn't face going to school. Now I had mononucleosis, and I figured out how to put the thermometer next to the light bulb to come up with a slight fever and convince my mother to stay home. My grades stayed okay because I was basically homeschooling myself. But so I come from that background of really, truly understanding the pain of being treated so badly. And so kind of throughout my life, I've been focusing on how can we support young people who are having challenges. So I'm kind of the epitome of not all who wander are lost, but boy, may look like that from time to time. So I became a special education teacher, worked with kids who have emotional challenges, and we never even talked about trauma at that point in time. Every single one of my students had experienced profound trauma. And so anyway, I burnt out and I was really frustrated with the whole school system. So I went to law school, because where do you learn about power? Okay, so after law school, I got into computer law, and that was before the internet was in school. I'm really old.
Wise, just wise.
And yeah, anyway, but I got much more excited with technology in schools. So I shifted to be an education technology provider, or consultant, sorry, for schools. And then the internet started to come into schools, and there was a need for someone who understood youth risk behavior, legal issues, and technology in schools. So I became actually an acknowledged digital safety expert. I testified before Congress, Congressional Commission, and stuff like that. And I wrote the first book ever published on cyberbullying. I wrote that, and it was published in 2007. I self-published in 2006, but an academic publisher picked it up. And I realized at that time how wrong the guidance was being provided to schools. Because what educators were being told is that those who bully are those at-risk youth who are aggressive and going to go the wrong way anyway, which is absolutely not true. Those kids are hurtful, but the dominant, the biggest source of bullying behavior is students who are very socially well situated. They are being hurtful to achieve dominance and social status in their schools. And that's not what educators were told. And that's not what any of the bullying prevention programs were built on. And then the other thing is that schools were told to make rules against bullying, supervise, tell students to report, investigate, and punish the wrongdoer. Well, how's that going to work in digital? You're not making the rules. You're not there. They're not telling you. You don't know how to investigate effectively. And if you do punish somebody, you've got uncontrollable digital retaliation. So that understanding has shaped my work from 2007. Note, Facebook went public fall of 2006. So anyway, a large foundation of what I've been trying to do is recognizing that the students who are being treated badly are also frequently have much less power. They don't have power in that. They are from identity groups that don't have power in our society. And that's kind of the basis. Now, quick switch. I have a beautiful Pygora goat who is about ready to give birth. And it looks like she is one of three. And she was pulled from her mom because she was being bullied and wasn't going to survive. She looks like she's going to have three. So I am currently in the process of getting ready to take care of the weakest baby goat, because that goat is going to get bullied and not be able to get sufficient milk. So we have to understand that there are populations of young people who are more apt to be treated badly by their peers. And this, yes, is animal behavior.
Yeah.
Okay. This is dominance behavior, survival of the fittest. This is animal behavior. Now, humans and some animal groups actually have two paths to leadership. One is this dominant behavior, being hurtful to those who are weird and being hurtful to rivals. But there's another path to leadership among humans and some animal groups, and that's by being a positive leader who is supporting their community. That's a real key element of understanding that we need, because those are the kids who, if you empower within the school, they can do a really good job of getting that bullying reduced. But Anyway,
Agreed.
The young people who are more apt to be treated badly are those who are more marginalized in our society. That includes students with disabilities, sexual minority students, students who are obese. Those are actually the top three. Students of color, it kind of depends on what community that they're in. If it's a school that's 80% students of color, that's, but if they're rare, Muslim, Asian, all of the marginalized groups in our society, their children are apt to be bullied. But it goes beyond that also. It's not just, it's also children who are white. They could be obese. They could be living in families that are at a poverty level. They could be in foster care. This is not a color issue. We've got too many racial politics going on right now. This is a disadvantage. So what we've got to do, in part, to address these is help those young people become more empowered and more resilient. And there's research from my good friends at the Cyberbully Research Center where they actually assessed student resilience. And they found that the students who scored higher on resilience scales were less likely to be bullied and more likely to be able to handle it. So for a very long time, I've been focusing on how do we empower young people and give them that resilience so that when things do get tough, they're not devastated. And so a lot of my research has been, I'm a research Grinch. I write way too much. When I write for adults, it's always really long and filled with citations because I really strongly focus on the research. Okay. Yeah. So the research that I have relied on in developing these strategies is both the research in trauma and resilience, like the Harvard has a great center on the developing child. They've got a lot of research insight on resilience, and also research that's in a field that's known as positive psychology, which is the study of those things that help really build us up. And there's the Positive Psychology Center at the University of Pennsylvania and the Greater Good Science Center at one of the UC, one of the University of California's. But look up Greater Good Science Center, get on to their newsletter. They are just great. So it's that kind of research that I've relied on. And in doing this, I came up with 7 strategies that are thoroughly research-based, which are the key strategies that I recommend to focus on. So I'm going to say them first, and then we're going to go through each one, and I'll give you some guidance, and then we'll apply that to bullying. So the first one is make positive connections. Okay. Our kids need to have positive connections with good friends and trusted adults. And those friends are absolutely important. There was a recent study that came out and found that the people with the greatest happiness are those who had good friends. And this was like lifelong generation study. I can't remember who it's from, but yeah. And young people need to have trusted adults who are both within their family and outside of their family, because anybody who's got a teenager knows that there's sometimes there are challenges with their parent and they need to be able to talk to somebody about it. So we need to have parents paying attention to making sure that their kids have safe, trusted adults to be able to talk to. Okay. And about friends, kids are most likely to form friendships with other kids who are kind of at the same level on the social status ladder, who share their interests. So interest-based friendships. So what we've got to do is get kids actively involved, following, pursuing their interests, and then look around and see who else is there. Okay. 2, reach out to be kind. Now, being kind is as good for the person who is doing the giving as it is for the one who receives. In fact, there is a study that shows that kids who were told to intentionally reach out to be kind every day, and they measured peer acceptance. So their level, the level to which they were appreciated and liked and accepted by peers, went up from the mere act of reaching out to be kind. Really important. The third is use my strengths. Now, I really like some analysis done by an organization called VIA Character Institute. They have identified 24 character strengths. This is social scientists throughout the world. What are the most significant strengths that that support the benefit of humanity throughout the world? And there are actually surveys on their sites that adults and teens can take, and I recommend everybody find, because we all have different strengths, and if we know what our strengths are, then we can act from those strengths. And the other component of use your strengths is what they call growth mindset. And that means that you're always trying and striving to improve. Edison was basically the best example of a growth mindset person, because he tried and tried and tried and tried to find the elements that could create a light bulb. And so failure isn't failure. Failure means you tried, or failure isn't bad. Failure means you tried and you figured out what wasn't going to work. So the magic word for use your strengths and growth mindset is yet. Oh, I haven't done this yet. I haven't figured this out yet. That's the magic word.
I like that.
So the fourth strength is focus on the good. And Dr. Hansen has a great book out there, Hardwiring Happiness. What he talks about is that the more you focus on the good things, that can help overcome the negative things that you've experienced. So, it's paying attention. Now, parents can, excuse me, parents can easily support their kids in these first four strengths. Every evening, you say, hey, who'd you have a great connection with today? Who were you kind to? What happened? What did you do that you feel really proud about? And what happened that made you feel really happy? If you ask those 4 questions every day, you will increase your level of happiness. Guaranteed.
So important.
So the next strength is remain calm. And we've got so many kids who are becoming disruptive in schools. And so we have to help them with this. There are 2 things we've got to do. Number 1 is set up a practice where you are taking the time to meditate, to be mindful, just to calm. And there are a whole bunch of books, meditation techniques for kids. It's really important. What that does is it builds the neural connections to allow them to remain calm. And there's really excellent expertise on this. Yes, it came from spiritual practices in the East, but we are at the point of really good Western science, and this is really important. The second thing, if you have a child who is more apt to become dysregulated, have outbursts, it's really important at a point in time when they're calm to be able to have them create plans, collaboratively work with them to create plans for what they're going to do. Now, after I do this, I'm going to talk a little bit about the brain so that you know how all this all functions, fits in. So the sixth is keep your personal power. That is really important for every kid, but especially those who are being treated badly. There are also two components to keep your personal power. One of them is, I'm reminding myself, sit up tall, Nancy. Yeah. Amy Cuddy from Harvard has a great TED Talk online. And she talks about power posing, how you hold yourself. So she's in the business school there. Yeah. And she had to help, especially, quite frankly, women. How do you maintain your power? And some of it, the cool thing is, you can tell a kid, go like this. How do you feel? Not very strong. Okay. Now hold yourself like this. And you can fake it. If you hold yourself tall, you become feeling stronger. And my favorite example when I'm working with kids is from Frozen, Elsa, Let It Go. In the beginning, she's like this, and then she gets her power, and she's like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's holding your power. The second component of keep your personal power is recognizing that you can't control what's going to happen to you. It's out of your, what happens to you is out of your control. You can control how you feel about yourself and how you respond. And that is just so exceptionally important. You know, it's like, yeah, that kid just was mean to me. I couldn't control that, but I'm not going to let that person control how I feel about myself or what I do. Okay. And the last component is think things through, problem solving. For kids who know how to evaluate what's happened, decide on what they want to see happen, their goal, think of a number of strategies. Several strategies are always very important. Be able to think about the consequences, what might happen if they implemented each of these strategies. And based on that evaluation, pick the first one, realize that now we're going back to use my strengths. This might not work yet. You know, my first response might not work yet, but implement the strategy, then evaluate. And if it didn't work yet, you may have to go through that. So those are my 7 strategies. So
that. Those are easy for parents to do. It's not so complicated.
So speaking of parents, I have just created 2 new online courses for parents, and you'll have the links on your site to go there. And one of them is Empower Your Child to Be Positively Powerful. So I go through a lot of more insight into this and how to do that. The other is Empower Your Bullied Child and insist that your child's school stop the harm. So I'll get those to you. But yeah, these are strategies that parents can implement. And I've had adults. I gave this book to a woman who I had met. She was a teacher's aide in the school. And she said she loved it so much because she had experienced trauma as a child and she was having challenges. Her granddaughter was now living with her and she was having challenges, and she started working through the program that I set forth, and she was raving about it. She said it helped so much. That's what I'm doing. So to understand why these strategies work, we have to understand a little bit about the brain. Okay. Now I've taught kindergarten students about the brain. So I think I can teach. Okay. So there are 4 important parts of the brain that we need to pay attention to. Okay. First is the amygdala. So the amygdala is part of our old brain. And the amygdala is what causes us to pay attention to threats. The amygdala is always looking around saying, am I safe? Am I safe? And when the amygdala says, oops, I may not be safe, it goes into action, and it prepares you to deal with the fact that you might not be safe. That's what we want it to do. But only we need to be able to control when the amygdala is going into action some way. The other part of your brain that's really important is also another old part of your brain. It's the hippocampus. The hippocampus is where you store your memories. Now, everybody has memories that are good and bad. Unfortunately, some kids have a lot more bad memories. The reason the hippocampus stores your memories is that you want to be able to identify a risky situation really quickly. Okay, so caveman, if the caveman knows what the signs are of a saber-toothed tiger and recognizes those signs, then the amygdala is going to go into action and they're going to be able to protect themselves. If that caveman's hippocampus doesn't notice those signs, then we've got a kind of sad ending for that story. So we really have to understand how the hippocampus functions with kids. It helps to understand that that's what's happening when you've got a return vet who has PTSD who overreacts to a loud noise. What's happened is the hippocampus said, danger, and the amygdala went into action, and it's a flash.
Fired up.
And that's what happens when our kids, very frequently happens when our kids are in school, and something happens to them that from the perspective of other people isn't a big deal, but because of past safety concerns that they face is a big deal to them. And you see that trigger go into effect. Okay. Next part of the brain is the anterior cingulate cortex. That's what regulates emotions. And that is a part of the brain that is developing as young people are growing. So they're gaining better ability to regulate the emotions. And the last part of the brain, now we want this brain to be together, is the prefrontal cortex. And that in kids is developing as they are growing and really doesn't get really firmly developed until they're around age 25. That's the part of their brain that allows them to think, to predict consequences, to be more sensitive to what other people are thinking and feeling. And now what we need to understand when kids are overreacting is that what has happened is their hippocampus is noting, saying these situations are making me feel unsafe. The amygdala goes into effect. And at first, the prefrontal cortex and anterior cingulate cortex are connected. But if they go into full panic mode, they flip their lid. Now, Dr. Dan Siegel is the source of this flip your lid component. But what happens is because the body is preparing to fight or run, the body doesn't need to think to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. Okay?
Yep.
But if a kid flips their lid, so I've seen, I was a substitute teacher for a while, I've seen so many people getting angry at kids because they flip their lid. And no, you need to make better choices. They can't make better choices. Their brain, their thinking part of their brain is out of
off
there.
Switch, yeah.
Yeah. So when I talked about remain calm, the more you practice meditation, the more you have the ability to not flip your lid, because you develop the neural connections that can help you keep calmer. The last three of my guidance, remain calm, keep your personal power, and think things through, are the way that you don't flip your lid. Okay, so I'm going to show you something fun. Because in addition to the work I'm doing here, I also have a program called The Way of the Donkey. And I am using donkeys in empowerment activities. And the cool thing about donkeys is that they're different from horses. I'm sorry to offend anybody who really likes horses. Horses evolved on the plains. If stressed, they go into flight. Donkeys evolved in rocky terrain, so they can't go into flight. They do not have a natural flight response. So if a strange dog comes onto the pasture next to mine, my donkeys are all standing there, totally still, holding themselves very tall and thinking things through, evaluating the situation. Okay, so I have a program called The Way of the Donkey. I work with kids who are at high risk. And what I teach them is to follow the way of the donkey. If things get tough, they need to stay calm, stand tall. Standing tall is really important because it makes you feel, gives you that power, makes you feel safer.
Yeah.
You're standing tall and think things through. Now, this is my donkey, Opie. Opie saw himself in the window. He didn't know whether that was...
Lower that down a little bit.
Okay,
there we go. Yeah.
Okay, he saw himself in the window. He thought it was another donkey. He didn't know if that donkey was safe or not. And is he kind of getting all upset and rushing around, or is he staying calm? He's staying calm.
Checking out the situation.
Is he like crouching down and looking scared? No, he's standing tall. And is he trying to figure out how to get to the other donkey? You betcha. In fact, he realized he couldn't get through the glass. He tried to pull me around the door to go.
Oh,
in
what
the room.
A cutie. Yeah.
Anyway,
funny.
So that's what I'm doing. And I've got these 2 parent classes, and I'm really hoping to get these books into schools. Counselors could use them in individual or small group work. I would love to see them get into advisories. And because we've got to do this. And those, when I was substitute teaching, I would go into the classroom in the morning and say, hey, end of the day, I'm going to ask you, who did you have a great connection with? Who were you kind to? What happened? What did you do that you were really proud of? And what happened that made you feel happy? And if kids just start to focus on that, we can shift. We can build better neural connections to support greater happiness.
Definitely.
So now, all of this relates to, I'm going to switch to bullying. All of this relates to young people who are being bullied, as well as those who are being hurtful, as well as those who may be witnessing these situations. I'm trying to address all of them. And in my kids' book, one of the things I added was some pages on how to apply these strategies in hurtful situations, because we've got, unfortunately, a whole bunch of societal discord going on that is absolutely manifesting in schools.
Yeah.
So that's, I really want to address that. So how do these strategies help if your child is being bullied? Research shows if your child has a good friend who they can talk with, they are less disturbed, less emotionally distressed if somebody is hurtful to them. Ditto with a trusted adult. If they can go talk to a trusted adult, not a report to get the person in trouble, but a trusted adult who can give them guidance on how to respond. Really important.
Yeah.
Reaching out to be kind. I already mentioned that. If your child is having challenges with people being hurtful to them, set them up. I call it the 5 copper pennies. 5 copper pennies go in your left pocket in the morning. Every time you're kind to somebody, you shift a penny over to your right pocket so that you're consistently being kind.
And measuring it. I like that.
Yeah, it works. The research is there that it works. I mean, there's legit academic research that says this is going to work. Strengths focus. There's also research that students who were bullied at a younger age, and they assessed them in high school, and those who were doing okay were those who had a focus on their future and building their strengths. So knowing what you're good at, really focusing on those things that you're doing that are using your strengths, and identifying and working with them. Focusing on the good, that just builds those neural connections so that you are happier, so that it is harder for somebody to take you down. Okay, these great things happened to me, and oh yeah, that guy was awful, or she treated me real badly, or they were, if the more you focus on the good, the happier you're going to be, and the less you're going to be impacted. Absolutely. The last 3 are critically important. When a kid is being treated badly, what the student is doing is they want to take their power from them. And the way they take their power is that the kid who's being treated badly overreacts, and everybody goes, oh, you couldn't cope, and you're a wimp, and okay. So the way a student responds, a young person responds if somebody is hurtful to them, will dictate whether or not they lose power or they can keep it. And OP, where's my OP? OP tells us how to do this.
Yeah.
If somebody is hurtful to you, you need to take a deep breath, stay calm, tell yourself, I'm going to stay calm. Don't give your power away by getting upset. Hold yourself tall. Actually, the young people who hold themselves tall as they walk through the school are less likely to be bullied, but especially if somebody's hurtful to you, you hold yourself tall. That is going to demonstrate your personal power and make you feel more powerful. It's feeling more safe by holding yourself tall. And think to yourself, yeah, that guy just was hurtful to me, but I can't control them. I can control how I feel about myself. And I'm just thinking about my strengths and all those good things that happened, and my positive connections. And yeah, I'm not going to allow that person to know that they have made me feel bad. And then you think things through. You've got to figure out how to get out of the situation. It may be best to make a joke of it. It may be best to simply walk away. It may be best to walk by an adult, not go to them, because that would be translated tattling. But you have to think things through, and there's not consistent guidance on that. The situations are all different. Okay.
Yeah.
So for the student who is hurtful, there are more things we need to be doing within schools. I've had a really hard time getting through to schools. If there are any educators listening to this, I do have a well-developed program, but I need to get some pilot implementations to be able to do this. And the important thing is to focus on what are called positive social norms. The vast majority of people don't like to see others being treated badly.
Yeah, definitely.
They don't admire those who are hurtful. They absolutely admire those who step in to help. And they also don't admire those who are friends of those and supporters of those who are being hurtful. So there are ways to get these positive norms into schools. And I would love to be working with schools on how to do that. But if you have a child who is being hurtful, it's important to focus on values. You know, why would you be hurtful, and why would you not be want to be hurtful to others. I'm assuming parents who are listening to this, if their child is being hurtful, it's in response to somebody else being hurtful to them. And there's a lot of situations where the kid who's a little weird is treated badly by one of these elitist students who is always very calm and sophisticated, and so never comes to the attention of the staff. And then the marginalized kid blows up, flips their lid, does something hurtful, and then that student's the one who said, well, your child's the one who did this, and gets suspended. So we've got to help kids not retaliate. Unfortunately, there's a fair part of our society who thinks retaliation is the appropriate thing to do. We've got to teach them not to. So how do you not retaliate? You not retaliate by staying calm, holding yourself tall, realizing that people can change. That's part of that use your strengths, the growth mindset. Realize that the person who's being hurtful to you can change, and realize that you can change. Realize that you've got growth, and there are ways, and there's actually research on that. If you teach students, somebody taught students, hey, you have the ability to change, they have the ability to change. That reduced retaliation. So realizing that change, then connecting, that positive connection with a friend, trusted adult. How do I handle this situation? And I don't want to be hurtful. And with that person, thinking things through. How do I respond to the fact that this is happening to me without walking down that path, without flipping my lid? Okay. So I've done a lot of work. I probably can't go into it right now on how to empower kids to step in and help, be, and a lot of that is the more powerful they feel, the more, and the more likely, and the more they're kind, etc., the more likely it is that they'll step in to help.
Yeah.
So let's shift to the negative. I've been focusing on bullying prevention for a very long time. In 2010, the Obama administration launched real significant efforts to address bullying. I think there are two reasons for this. One was a real increase in focus in social justice, equity, realizing that a lot of the kids who are being bullied are the ones who are not succeeding in school, etc. And also cyberbullying, which made the invisible more visible. Okay. Unfortunately, the guidance that they provided was not effective and was actually very damaging. First of all, for a very long time, the information on the suppling.gov website was that the students who bully are those at-risk youth who are violent. Inaccurate. And finally, a National Academy of Science report came out in 2016 and said, hey, there's this public stereotype of those who bully as being these at-risk youth, and that's wrong. The ones who are engaging in this are at the top of the social structure, and they are bullying, they are being hurtful to achieve dominance and social status. They're skilled, they are valued, frequently good athletes, and school staff would never think of them as being the kinds of students who are going to be hurtful, because they're smart enough to know how to behave when they're around adults. They have empathy. They know exactly how to stab the knife into the back of another kid and twist it ever so slightly to make that child feel miserable without attracting the attention of school staff. Okay? That's an underlying foundation. What the Obama administration recommended focused on state statutes. All of the state statutes have incorporated an approach that is make rules, supervise, tell students to report, investigate, and impose consequences. That's the same paradigm that I said isn't going to work in cyberbullying. And guess what? It's not working in schools. Why is it not working? Number one, not all students follow the rules, especially if they can get away with it. And they may not even think that they are violating the rules. They're just keeping social order. They're just letting everybody know which students are weird and should be excluded. The vast majority of students who are treated really badly don't report. So the whole process is grounded in the idea that students are going to report. The vast majority don't. There's a really great study that was done that asked students who were bullied and feeling really bad whether or not they told, and if they told, whether things got better, stayed the same, or got worse. And what the researchers found was that only about a third of the students told, this is secondary, slightly more in fifth grade told, only about a third told. After they told, things got better about a third of the time, stayed the same a third of the time, got worse a third of the time. So if you do the math, I'm not a real strong mathematician, but I can do that math. We've got a 10% level of effectiveness of the tell an adult approach. 10%. It's not working.
No.
Also consider the kinds of students who are most frequently involved in being hurtful. Is a principal going to discipline those students? What are the parents of those students going to say if their university-bound student has a disciplinary report that they were engaging in bullying?
Yeah.
Not going to happen. The other thing, so this whole approach is not working. And then, all these statutes went in early 2010s ish, and the response to bullying is to impose sanctions. And then there's this huge push of schools to stop suspending students. Now, there are equity issues regarding suspension, but it's no wonder. Oh, by the way, this is not the fault of schools. This is the fault of the system.
Yeah.
Principals and educators want all kids to feel safe, welcome, and respected. This isn't the fault of the schools.
Yeah.
This is a systemic fault.
Yeah.
And so principals are told, address bullying by suspending students. Oh, don't suspend students. Well, they're not suspending the concerns of suspension aren't the students who are being hurtful anyway. But if you do this, don't do that. And then they're also told, use restorative practices. But in the bullying guidance, they're told, don't use mediation or conflict resolution.
Oh my goodness.
So the guidance they're receiving is nonsense.
Convoluted.
There's some more problems. The best way for schools to respond to these incidents is by following the requirements under civil rights regulations. Now, in the bullying statute, the focus was on, did this student violate the rules and should they be punished? Under civil rights regulations, what schools are supposed to do if a hostile environment, that is, if a kid's their education is being interfered with because they're being treated badly, is stop the harassment, which requires more than just punishment, remedy the harm to the targeted student, correct any aspects of the environment that are fostering this, and monitor to make sure that all of this works. Now, there's a problem, and that is this is only available for students who are in protected classes. So what about the kid who's being treated badly because they're obese? Or they've got their parents are in poverty, parents in jail, parent, all of those. There are a lot of kids who don't, by most analysis, receive protection.
Yeah.
Okay. But the other problem is most of the state statutes have incorporated language that relates to the protected class students. So the bullying statute and the bullying policy specifically notes students with disabilities, of color, sexual minorities, specifically notes that. So that's also really confusing for principals because they're not taught the civil rights. I contacted every single institution of higher education in Oregon, that's where I live, to find out if principals were being taught how they're supposed to respond under civil rights law. They're not even being taught. So they see the civil rights statuses in the state statute, and they think their sole focus is on whether or not to punish this student. So it's not working. Now, here's the big, huge thing. The other guidance that was given was the state statutes put a section in that requires schools to annually report how many bullying incidents they've had. And a lot of states did that. The one state that I have really good data from is New York. They put this into, we've just enacted the Dignity Act. It's the best anti-bullying policy. I mean, okay, they put that provision in. The state comptroller found, looking at data, his report, I don't know if it's his or she, their report came out, I think in 2016. What they found was in 2011-12, this was several years after the statute went in, 71% of New York City schools had 0 incidents of bullying.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, I got a bridge I can tell you.
Yeah.
I just talked to a gentleman in a State Department, another state, and they have the same provision. And he said every year he sees principals go to their school board and say there were no bullying incidents. So what we've done is we've created for principals a potential of a black mark on them and their school.
Yeah.
If they say that they're encouraging kids to report to them if
there's no data
treating
coming.
them badly.
Yeah.
And so what happens when those brave kids do is they're told this isn't bullying.
Yeah.
Of course, we also have multiple definitions of what bullying is. So they're just, so it's not working. Okay?
Yeah.
So to ensure this doesn't work even more, the Every Student Succeeds Act put a requirement in nationally for all schools to also report to the Office for Civil Rights, not bullying, but discriminatory harassment, bullying against students with disabilities, based on race, based on sex. Okay? So I'm going to give you the link. You can put it in your notes.
Yeah.
To finally, the first data came out, it's 2017. Okay? And I'm going to let every one of your viewers go and look at the data from their district or their child's school. Now, there's a district near me. I know that about 5.5% of protected class students, so this is reporting only of protected, reported that they were being treated badly once a week or more. Okay?
Yeah.
Once a week or more. And this was data from 2018. The 2017 data, this school reported, medium-sized school, 16 incidents.
Total.
Yeah. Total. Go look. This is astounding.
Yeah.
There's one
So
district
unfortunate
that I looked at a much larger district. I think it got like 36,000 students. And they disciplined 45 students for racial-based harassment. So, and wait a minute, 45 students of color for racial-based harassment, and they disciplined 5 white students.
And they reported that? They thought that
they
looked
reported
good?
that.
Oh, goodness.
Okay, so what's happening is absolutely horrendous. Principals aren't at fault for all of this stuff, but they are not responding effectively. So that's why. And yes, I published a book for this. It's comprehensive. It's over 400 pages. I can't get through. So that's why what I'm shifting to is trying to help parents know how they can, within this absolutely insane system, how they can proceed to address the concerns that their child is being bullied, doesn't want to go to school, is totally distressed, etc. And that is what is in the second online course. You know, if your child's being bullied, you may be able to handle it just with the empowerment approaches that I'm saying. But if it's at the point where your child is really emotionally distressed and the school's not responding, these are the steps that you can follow. And I have found a way legally. I was an attorney, you know, not all who wander are lost, but you know, it kind of helps sometimes. I have found a way, and I've had it double checked by a couple of other education lawyers, to basically situate the situation. If you've got a child who's not within a protected class, but is experiencing mental health concerns because of what's going on and how they're being treated, you can, and this is interfering with their learning, okay, you can request that they be placed on a 504 plan, Section 504. It's a statute that protects people with disabilities. Mental health illness is a disability. You can ask to have your child placed on a 504 plan. And in doing that, your protections are greater, even than the other civil rights laws. Because under Section 504, not only do they have to have a plan that stops the harassment, remedies the harm, corrects the environment, and monitors, that plan needs to be created by a team. The 504 team needs to be involved in creating that plan. Most 504 teams also include the parent and student if the student is older. And under Section 504, there are really helpful procedural safeguards for parents. So if you go to the school and say, my child is experiencing significant emotional distress, and I've got diagnosis from a doctor of mental health concern, And this is interfering with their ability to learn. Doesn't mean they're getting bad grades. They may have to be, they are really struggling to keep up their grades. But my child is being, this is harming their education, and they're being bullied based on any basis. I want my child evaluated for placement on a 504. Principal says no. You say, I want a due process hearing. Here's my documentation. And so I've provided the whole guide. Here's what you document. Here's my documentation. If you will not proceed in this way, then we need to have a due process hearing.
Yeah.
And if the plan does not address all of these aspects, providing support, stopping, then you can get a due process hearing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's how I'm trying to empower parents to get this to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, parents, man, they really are the driving force sometimes behind these kids, because they are the ones that are at home with them. They see the effects that happens when these kids are bullied. You know, for a small instance, but I know every time my daughter has an incident, I kind of see, because she's still young, you know, she kind of reverts back to, you know, tucking her dolls in, or just kind of like stuff that made her feel safe when she was a little younger. And my husband and I have started to recognize some of these signs, and we can say, okay, you know, something might be, and she's very open with us. We're really lucky about that. But it doesn't mean that the school is implementing any changes. Even though we know about it, the school knows about it. It doesn't mean that anything is actually changing. They're just talking about it.
That, yeah. And I, you know, I'm on a Facebook group with principals. I know how dedicated they are and how overwhelmed they are by everything that they're dealing with now. But in the area of bullying, the systemic issues are blocking them. And none of us in this field, since last decade, none of us have been able to get through.
Yeah.
It is closed door. And that's not just me. You know, sometimes I feel like a failure, but it's not just me. It's everybody who's been trying to get through. I have self-published my book because I have other published books, academic publishers, not interested in any book on bullying because the ones they published last decade have not sold.
Yeah.
These are systemic concerns. And I, so far, have not had sufficient power to go up against 50 state statutes in the federal government.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm trying to empower parents.
Yeah.
To be able to do that. And that's everything that I'm about right now.
It's been so wonderful to catch up with you, Nancy. And I love what you're doing. I've always loved what you've done since we've met, you know, 2 years ago. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And it's just so it's so neat to see the improvements and the growth that both of us have had, and just really rising to the occasion to just be better people for society, and really, you know, hoping to help our communities out. So before we go, tell us your website or any links you'd like to say, and then we'll make sure, of course, to have that all down in the show.
Okay. Yeah. The best website is bepositivelypowerful.com.
Perfectly.
Yeah. There is a free downloadable document. I have a hard time keeping things really short. It's 22 pages, but you know, it's a free document, a free ebook that you can download to see what I'm about, what I'm doing. And I've kept the online course rate really low. The income from that will allow me to continue to do this business and try to find better strategies to reach out to parents.
Absolutely.
So because I'm not getting through to schools at this point in time, but I hope to. I hope to.
I hope you do.
I hope that if I can get my kids' books into schools, they'll say, "Hey, I wonder what else she knows."
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I am going to be creating courses for educators on how to implement these be positively powerful strategies.
Great.
And I actually have a full chapter in my other book, which is Engage Students to Embrace Civility, that provides all the research basis for this. So if anybody's interested, this is thoroughly research based. and that is anyway, so yes.
Yeah.
So it is so wonderful. We've been friends on Facebook ever since I appeared, and so I've been watching all of the great things that are happening to you and your phenomenal success in this area, which I sort of predicted.
So, thank you.
Yeah, I'm feeling really good about what I got started here.
Exactly. You were the beginning process. No, and I'm so grateful to where I started. And from, you always have to be thankful, be present, and just let's continue to do our best, people, especially those who are listening. That's our whole goal here, is to provide a safe, really nice society for generations to come.
Absolutely.
Nancy, thank you so much for being here today. I will definitely be in touch. And
yep, I'll get all the links to you.
Sounds great. Talk to you soon.
Okay.